Monster Week. Your party has accepted a new quest. Just like any other, find some missing people. Either figure out where they are or figure out why they went missing. You follow the clues, make your way into the woods, deeper and deeper. Mists grow thicker and thicker, until eventually you come across a rotting wooden sign with the words, "Witch Night Carnival." A carnival? Here? What would a carnival be doing here? At this point, you're too far in to turn back, so you keep going. And you find yourself in what appears to be a long-abandoned amusement park. Booths full of rotten food and shredded toys, banners molded and falling apart, and a mechanical music machine. You think it's called a calliope, perhaps? That seems to be operated by a toy monkey with half its face missing. As you approach, it groans to life and intones in a robotic voice that seems barely to hold itself together. "Spare a button, if you please. I'll sew it next to all of these. I offer nothing in its place except a smile upon my face." You are more than a bit confused and definitely a little freaked out, but you decide to humor the machine and drop a button into a bucket at its feet. It begins speeding up, the music from the calliope growing panicked and more discordant with every passing second until it cannot stand the strain of its own workings and crumbles, inner gears popping and crashing before the whole thing simply falls silent. The monkey topples to the side, its head barely held onto its shoulders, and as you walk away, you hear it mutter, "Hither, thither, here and there. Wander yonder, show me where." You continue to explore, encountering more and more unsettling things. A bubble of sludge that emerges from a giant teapot snatches up one of your party members and carries them high into the air before bursting and dropping them into the middle of the booths. A carousel of unicorns that speak directly into your minds, telling you of the danger that lurks nearby and that there is no possible way of escape. From the corner of your eye, you see insectoid creatures skittering into the darkness and into burrows in the ground. And once in a while you catch a glimpse of yourself in a mirror, only it isn't quite yourself. Or perhaps there's something on your shoulder? Perhaps there's something behind you? Everything is wrong. Nothing is right. Everything is wrong. Everything is wrong. Everything is wrong. Everything is wrong. You try to leave. You find the edge of the carnival and begin running back into the woods. But in mere moments, you find yourself simply re-entering the exact same carnival from the opposite side. It won't let you leave. It has you now. You've no choice but to figure out why. As you continue to explore, you eventually find a cavern entrance that leads downward in what are very obviously constructed stairs. No point turning back. You proceed downward, the darkness growing deeper and deeper and deeper, until you find your way into a massive underground cave, moss thickly padding the ground, and the ceiling is that a dining table? And as you stare upwards, listening and watching for any sign of danger, you realize that you are not alone. And with creeping dread, you also realize you never were. Welcome to my humble home. Priscilla was something of a gourmet, always interested in new ways to season her meals, and as one who derived sustenance from fear, this meant extracting the most extravagant terror while causing minimal harm to the body. The dead fear nothing, after all. She could, of course, reach into the minds of the morsels, as she called them, and dredge their darkest nightmares to the surface to embody them in full. But while this was enjoyable, she always found it inefficient, not to mention hazardous. Fear erodes the rational mind, invariably causing the main dish to lash out. Some had even been hardy enough to fight back in earnest. After receiving a particularly grievous mark from an upstart paladin, Priscilla knew she had to change her recipe. Hands-on cookery was all well and good, but not if it meant nearly losing her life and being chased out of every home she tried to build. That was when she thought back on an old story. Like any hag worth her warts, Priscilla knew well of a particular coven and their ill-fated dealings with a certain Carnival. Most of her extended sisterhood preferred not to speak or think on the topic too long, but Priscilla found the idea fascinating. A carnival. A place where people gather by the hundreds, willingly walking into a realm in which they have little to no control. She'd even heard tell of a particular attraction built on the premise of showing a creature their greatest fear. People walked into such things willingly, paid for the privilege even. And she didn't need hundreds, nor even dozens. If she could just get a handful to stumble her way without knowing she was there. The Tinkerer was not difficult to convince. A gray-bearded satyr, former footman of the summer court, shunned for his obsession with the mechanical over the natural. Every fae with a fragment of common sense was cautious of hags, but he just couldn't resist once Priscilla explained what he would be creating. An automatic miniature amusement park. He still had his reservations about its intended purpose. Even if Priscilla didn't need to kill her victims to feed on them, they would still be left exhausted and panicked in the middle of unknown fae territory. But the prospect of recreating scenes from the famous Witchlight Carnival, operated entirely by clockwork and arcana, it was just too juicy to pass up. Well, can't say as I much approve, but can't say it's as much of my business neither. Let's get a going! So the work began. Tinkerer designed and crafted the main features, a carousel of clairvoyant unicorns who spoke messages of doom, a calliope cranked by a carefully dilapidated monkey, a bubbling teapot that would snare any investigators and carry them into the air, not high enough to die from the landing, just enough to dread the fall. For her part, Priscilla worked at perfecting the atmosphere with rotted food stalls, game booths full of tattered knickknacks, and a hall of enchanted mirrors that would briefly reflect a figure that shouldn't be there. Until her new nest was complete, Priscilla still had to keep dining out. Each time she left and returned, she gradually wove an enchantment to ensure that any who entered would not be able to leave. She knew it was working when she tasted a new and distinct unease from the Tinkerer. He took to periodically medicating himself with an odd purplish rock. Priscilla wasn't sure what it was, but his eyes grew unfocused for a few moments after consuming it. He also started banging together a donkey statue out of metal scraps from other projects. She didn't begrudge him his hobbies. The place would no doubt be full of scrap statues one day. In good time, the task was complete. Tarry bubbles bloated languidly out of the teapot. The creaking monkey intoned his scratch-throated rhymes. The unicorns whispered, oh, so sweetly. The old goat even improved on Priscilla's hall of mirrors by suggesting a few be strewn about in the open so they could do their work even if the morsels never set foot in the hall. The dear thing couldn't help himself. Perhaps it was the rock addling his mind, but he just couldn't resist making the whole machine as effective as possible. That was why she had to keep him. Once the final tests were finished, the Tinkerer offered his congratulations. I do have to say, Miss Priscilla, this was a mighty interesting idea, and whatever it might be meant for, I appreciate being part of it. Now, seems to me my job here is finished, so if you don't mind, I'll take my leave and let you get to finding your supper. Priscilla didn't mind, per se, but how exactly did he plan on leaving? Her barrier was very much still in place, and she had no intention of taking it down for anyone. So rather than tire out his old hooves, he might as well pick a booth and get comfortable. She expected a delicious drizzle of creeping dread, followed by some bright and bubbly panic. But she got neither. Instead, the crafter actually smiled at her. I had a feeling it might turn out like this, so I've been working on a little surprise. After all, what's a carnival without a show? Yeah! With a kick of his hoof, the satyr vanished in a puff of dust and reappeared atop his rapidly rusting donkey statue. Without a word from its rider, the constructed animal dashed away at surprising speed, with the tinkerer holding tight to a pot-lid handle at the back of its head. With his other hand, he pulled his hat down over his eyes, letting his mount find the way on its own. Priscilla just caught a faint purple glow emanating from somewhere in the depths of the construct before it was out of her new lair and out of sight. How frustrating! Yet there was no real cause for anger. Priscilla had never been particularly adept at the mind games the courts so often played, and everything he'd built was still firmly in place and functioning as intended. Let the little man have his victory. What mattered was that her table was set. Now, what sort of morsel will wander in first? Hello, I am a tan gent, and this was my video for Monster Week. If you somehow found this without knowing what that is, Monster Week is an annual event organized by Ginny D and Pointy Hat, bringing the D&D community together to discuss some creature type or setting in order to just bounce around ideas and just have fun being creative together. First time they did this, it was aquatic themed, then it was dragons, and this year it's the Fae. As soon as I heard that the theme was Fae, I immediately thought of Wild Beyond the Witchlight, because I am actually in an off-and-on campaign of that myself. And so I thought, okay, how can I really do something else with that? Because I noticed while I was playing that it does have it has just a bit of a horror tinge to it in a few key points during the carnival. I'm trying not to spoil anything, but they're definitely in there. And that's when I remembered, oh yeah, the Fae can very much lean into horror if you want them to. Anybody who's familiar with Pointy Hat probably recognized Priscilla as his creation, the Haunt Hag. And that's what I built this around. The idea that this creature that feeds on the emotion of fear would construct this mockery of a place of joy in order to, sap the happiness and feast upon the terror. So I brought in a couple attractions from the Witchlight Carnival and gently implied the existence of meanlocks, which are creatures that are spawned from fear. If you are too scared of something in the Feywild, you might accidentally create a meanlock nearby. And I thought, hey, if this is a place where people are constantly getting terrified, there would probably be quite a few of them around. In my head, the underground cavern that you stumble into, that's actually the result of a whole bunch of meanlocks spawning and spawning and spawning in this same place and eventually burrowing out and creating this massive cavern. Tinkerer is actually a character that I am currently playing in a different campaign. He's an artificer, as you might have been able to guess, and goes by a different name in that campaign, but this is like a sort of retroactive addition to his backstory. The reason I did it as a sort of skit, radio play, whatever you want to call it, it's because I am more experienced with narrative writing than I am with DMing, so I wanted to, rather than laying out the exact mechanical sequence of how you can run something like this as a one-shot, I decided to just create the vibe of the place and the characters involved and say, hey, run wild with it. Because you could do all kinds of things with it. Like, my idea for the bubbling teapot was to have it snatch people up and drop them from the air, but you could also just have it spit out ooze monsters, or be just a pit trap that leads to something else. And there are all kinds of things you could do with the carnival attractions and games. The rotten food could turn out to be something. There could be some hidden item in the midst of the prizes that could help them or hurt them. There are all kinds of ways that you could make this your own. I just wanted to have this idea out there. This fly trap carnival. This pseudo witchlight. This witch night carnival, the dark beneath the witchlight kind of a thing. But honestly, I don't think I really need to say anything more, so thank you for watching. Go watch some more Monster Week videos. There's a whole playlist for each day of Monster Week. And yeah, I think that's about all I've got. Thanks for helping me clear out my brain, and insert outro here.